Is brought to you by Jiffy Mix, corn muffin mix in the blue and white box, coming from Chelsea, Michigan, in the palm of the mitten, that they call the Lower Peninsula of Michigan. It was in Chelsea, Michigan that my dad went into a memory loss unit and visited every day by his sweetheart. Well, no, in his earlier days, he played the great Highland bagpipes. He was a piper, and so were both of my brothers. And they were made to practice outdoors. It was Johnny, Stewie, that's an outside noise. Go play in the pasture. But one of the things he played on the pipes, well, we used to go caroling. He would take us caroling, and all the neighbors could hear. You know, he'd come down the street with Joy to the World, or It Came Upon a Midnight Clear going right over his shoulder. Memories are a good thing to have. He didn't have any at the end of days, but actually he did. I'll come to that part in a minute. One of the tunes he played was a waltz time Highland lullaby. I learned it on the fiddle. Meyer learned it on the fiddle. And when we went to visit him, we took the train out to Michigan, or did we drive? I can't remember. We were in the day room, and we played that tune. Played that. And he perked right up. He was deep in the depths of not knowing squat. And just, you could see it happen.
Yeah.
And later on, we sat around in some little spaces in that locked-in unit and sang some of the songs that he remembered and knew. And he knew who was who and what was what. He just couldn't get it out. Deep inside, somewhere in there, he was. And he looked right up at me and said, "I know a song that's better than that. It's called Get Off Your Ass." He knew exactly who he was talking to. So anyway, he loved and knew the poems of Mariette Edgar. You probably heard this one before. It's called The Hole in the Ark. And it goes like this. One evening at dusk, as Noah stood on his ark, putting green oil in starboard side lamp, his wife came along and said, "Noah, something's wrong. Our cabin is getting quite damp." So he said, "Is that so?" And he went down below and he found it were right what she'd said, for there on the floor, quite a puddle he saw, it was sloshing around under the bed. Says he, "There's an hole in the bottom somewhere, we must find it before we retire." And he thought for a bit and he said, "That's it, a bloodhound is what we require." So they went and fetched bloodhound from the place where it lay, between the skunk and the polecat it were. And as things down below was a trifle so-so, he were glad of a bit of fresh air. They followed the sound as it went sniffing round, and at last they located the leak. It was a small hole in the side, about 2 inches wide, where a swordfish had poked in his beak. By gum, how the wet squirted in through that hole. Well, young Shem, who at sums was expert, worked it out on his slate as it came at the rate of per gallon, per second, per squirt. The bloodhound tried hard to keep water in check by lapping it up with his tongue, but it came in so fast through that hole that at last he shoved in his nose for a bung. The poor faithful hound, he were very near drowned. They dragged him away none too soon, for the water as rose worked its way up his nose and blew him out like a balloon. Mrs. Noah put her elbow in hole and said, "It stopped, I believe." But they found very soon as she altered her tune, for the water had gone up her sleeve. When she saw that her elbow weren't doing much good, she said, "Hey, Noah, I've an idea. You sit on the leak. By end of the week, there's no knowing. Weather may clear." Well, Noah didn't think much to this idea at all, but he reckoned he'd give it a try. On the hole down he flopped, and the leaking all stopped, and all, except him, were quite dry. They brought him his breakfast, his dinner and tea, as day after day there he sat, till the rain finally passed, and they landed at last on top of Mount Ararat. And that is how Noah brought them all safe to shore. But ever since then, strange to tell, them as helped save the ark have all carried a mark, aye, and all their descendants as well. And that's why a dog has a cold nose and a lady cold elbows. And you'll find, if you inquire, that that's why a man takes his coattails in hand and stands with his back to the fire.
Thank you, Bill.